Today, with just one word, President Biden injected new unpredictability in the tense relationship with China. A warning: Beijing must not invade Taiwan.
You didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
You are?
That's the commitment we made.
Joe Biden says in a press conference that the U.S. will intervene if China decides to invade Taiwan. I'm Yasmin Khan with Rebel HQ, and shortly after Biden said what he said, the White House released a statement confirming that the U.S. stance on the Taiwan-China situation is unchanged. The official stance is one of strategic ambiguity. Now, just to get you caught up, the situation between Taiwan and China is an interesting one that goes back to the days of British imperialism. Long story short, after abandoning its long-held policy of isolationism, the Chinese government decided to open itself up for trade with the Western world. Once it didn't go well. China was plunged into war after war, suffering several defeats, each more crippling than the last. Its land was plundered, its people were drugged, and its borders and ports were no longer under its control. By the 1900s, China was divided. A nationalist movement arose from the disunity and declared itself the official government of China. They called it the Republic of China, or the ROC. However, once the communists rose up under Mao Zedong, they defeated the nationalists for control of the mainland government. This new communist government became known as the People's Republic of China, or the PRC. The ROC was then pushed out, literally, and they took refuge in the tropical island off the coast of China, Taiwan. Now, from that point, the official government of China was physically in Taiwan, but the Communist government of China was operating on the mainland. It wasn't until 1979 when the US finally recognized the PRC's legitimacy as China's government while also maintaining its recognition of Taiwan's sovereignty. Still, there was always the constant threat that China would one day make a play for Taiwan.
President Biden now en route back to Washington, but here in Asia, leaving behind more confusion than clarity. Just a day after forcefully stating that the U.S. would defend Taiwan militarily if China invaded the self-governed island, where the long-standing U.S. policy has been strategic ambiguity, being deliberately vague about what the U.S. would do, President Biden overnight at a summit with allies in the region, insisting his policy toward Taiwan had not changed.
Policy strategic ambiguity towards Taiwan dead?
No.
Asked whether he would send U.S. troops to Taiwan if China invaded,
Our policy has not changed at all. I stated that when I made my statement yesterday.
Right now, there's something in place called the Taiwan Relations Act, or the TRA. The TRA maintains a friendly relationship between the US and Taiwan, but it does not guarantee military support or aid in the event of an attack from China. Any US intervention on behalf of Taiwan is to be determined on a case-by-case basis by the sitting president and Congress. As of 2016, with bipartisan support, the U.S. issued the 6 assurances regarding our ongoing relationship with Taiwan. They stated there would be no end date for terminating arms sales to Taiwan. The U.S. would not serve as a mediator between China and Taiwan. The U.S. will not influence Taiwan to negotiate with China. The U.S. maintains its position on Taiwanese sovereignty, the Taiwan Relations Act stands as is, and the U.S. is not obligated to confer with China over arms sales to Taiwan. This, in conjunction with the U.S. government's stance of strategic ambiguity, suggests that the U.S. will do whatever makes the most sense for its interests, which is no different from anything else that we do. Biden's statement implies that he's committing to taking military action against China, but it's not his call to make. Congress needs to sign off on it. With Russia's invasion of Ukraine, parallels were immediately drawn with Taiwan and China, the fear being that China would assess the global response to Russia and determine if it'd be worth it for China to invade Taiwan in a similar way. Of course, neither China nor Taiwan is a member of NATO, just as Ukraine and Russia are not NATO members, but Taiwan's sovereignty is what's at stake. It's the unwillingness to set a precedent that nations can simply invade other nations and claim them as their own without condemnation or retribution from the international community. Is it hypocritical coming from the US? Yes, it is. But the ideological war is still a crucial component of policy decisions and foreign relations. So when I first read this headline, I kind of scrolled past it at first because I just couldn't be bothered at the time. But when I thought about it later, I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about it. I had to confront my own bias a bit and think about how I might have felt if Trump had made the same comment as Biden did. And I don't think I would have been very happy about it. And Trump did have his own gaffe regarding Taiwan. Back in 2016, Trump took a call from Taiwan in which the two leaders congratulated each other in their presidential elections. Trump then tweeted about the call, breaking with U.S. foreign policy before he was even inaugurated. Still, this came out of Joe Biden's mouth. Joe Biden has experience working with foreign governments from his years in Washington, so he should at least understand the big picture of what he's talking about and the weight his words now carry as the President of the United States. China even got mad at John Cena, who is no one in terms of foreign diplomatic relations, when he referred to Taiwan as a country, so they're a little sensitive on this particular topic. Joe Biden knows that. But let's go back to the question Biden was actually asked. The reporter said, "You didn't want to get involved in the Ukraine conflict militarily for obvious reasons. Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?" Joe Biden said yes. He didn't specify the extent of that involvement, so he could have just meant that the U.S. would continue to supply Taiwan with arms, which is in accordance with the 6 assurances. According to the White House, this is what Biden was actually referring to. The trouble arises with the first part of the question. The question was posed in contrast to Biden's response in Ukraine, which has basically been to supply Ukraine with arms. He didn't want to get involved militarily in Ukraine, so he gave them arms for them to defend themselves with. He said he would get involved militarily in Taiwan, which suggests that his Taiwanese response would be different and potentially bigger from his Ukrainian one. It's never great when you're having to parse out intentions and meanings from the things global leaders say, but here we are.